All right, folks, we talk about this whole idea of voting, and of course, we've said how impactful voter suppression is. And so, can Republicans actually make an argument that is appealing to black folks? All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hey, folks, if you're looking for a hot new investment opportunity, I have two things I want you to think about: illegal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, you just let that sink in for a second. Our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate have created a unique opportunity for everyday investors like you to get in the game for a minimum of $300 or $10,000, 50 grand, or even $100,000. You can get in where you want to fit in. Now, typically, it takes millions, if not billions, to invest in the legal marijuana industry, and it can be pretty risky trying to establish market share. However, Transatlantic Real Estate is taking a different approach. They buy the land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. Now, imagine being a landlord to a licensed marijuana farm. With the prospects of further legalization and changing public perceptions about marijuana, some investors could end up making serious money over the next several years. The best part is they are using crowdfunding, so you can get in now before they take the company public. If you want to find out more, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org to get in now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. Demetrius Minor, he is the Coalition Director for the Americans for Prosperity Florida, author of Preservation and Purpose, The Making of a Young Millennial, and the Manifesto for Faith, Family, and Politics. And so, Demetrius, what about that? Because last week, Young Conservative Summit they had, all these young black folks were there, and they all what they doing is just yelling, hollering, screaming, talking about, oh, what Democrats haven't done. And I said, fine, what's your agenda? You haven't said anything to me that makes it appealing as to why you should get somebody black to vote. And I also say, Demetrius, that as long as Republicans keep being scared of black people, we ain't voting for them.
First of all, Roland, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on your show. Greatly honored. When someone first enters into politics, the arena of politics, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of fervor, and there's a lot of energy. And at times, at least I can speak for myself on a personal basis, there is a tendency to latch onto personality over policy. But it's policy that's going to have the most direct influence on people's lives, especially on a state and local level. And I can provide 4 examples about that, Roland, here in the Sunshine State. In March, as I was lobbying on behalf of Americans for Prosperity, in Tallahassee, the state capital of Florida, I was lobbying for a free speech bill, free speech on college campus bill. And a person who was very vital in helping that bill, the passage of that bill, become successful was Representative Kim Daniels, a conservative blue dog black woman who was a Democrat in the state of Florida. And so that just goes to show you the power and the sensuality of reaching across the aisle. Here, I reside in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is right outside of Tampa. We've partnered with the Hillsborough County NAACP, which is the largest chapter of the NAACP in the state of Florida, to come against a transportation tax that will not benefit the poor, that will hurt minorities the most. It's a regressive tax. The NAACP feels that its constituents have been slighted, that they have been ignored, and that the group that's pushing this transportation tax is pushing it without asking for their input. So we've partnered with them in calling for voters to vote against this referendum come Tuesday. A third example, Roland,
but Demetrius, here's the question. But here's the question, though. Here's the question. I'm talking about Republican candidates who are white. And the question is this: do they have the guts to go into black communities, to actually sit with black people and ask them, what are the things that you care about? I have had this discussion over the years with Michael Steele, with J.C. Watts, with Elroy Saylor, with Michael Williams. I mean, a whole host of people. And the reality is this here. Whenever elections come around, Republicans go, we're not going to get black votes, so we're just going to go focus on our voters. But then they complain about black people who vote Democrat, and then they always say, oh, Democrats taking you for granted. But it's very simple. If one party largely ignores you, then you're not going to even consider that particular person as a black Republican. Do you also face those issues and trying to explain to white Republicans, look, if you ignore black folks, they're not going to vote for you.
Well, sure, you're absolutely right. But I just gave you some examples of what we've done early on through the year, throughout the state legislature, working with elected officials, of how we have partnered for conservative causes with black individuals, going to where black people are, representing their constituency. I definitely can't speak, or neither will I be held accountable for what people do in various states. But here in the state of Florida, we have put a concrete effort in articulating our principles, our values, and our mission and vision to those who traditionally are not aligned with us.
So is Ron DeSantis doing that against Andrew Gillum?
Ron DeSantis, just like Andrew Gillum, is out there campaigning and vying for every single vote. Let me put this disclaimer out there. As a member of Americans for Prosperity, we're nonpartisan, so we don't reflect either party.
No. I'm not. No. But I'm asking you. But you're in Florida. You're in Florida, and you're a black Republican.
Sure.
And so this is not. But I'm asking: is Ron DeSantis actually specifically targeting and campaigning for African American votes? Is he holding events in black communities? Is he sitting down with black people?
Sure. I know many black Republicans who will be voting for Ron DeSantis. Now, ultimately, it's going to be up to the whole state of Florida as a whole to determine who's going to be the next governor.
Gotcha. Well, here again, this is the issue that I would say, and then I want you to get your final comment. As long as Republicans continue to push issues like voter suppression, that is going to be the biggest barrier to black people even remotely considering voting for a Republican. Because as Common said in the song Gloria, freedom is like a religion to us. And when you are making it harder for folks to vote, that never sits well with black folks. And look, even the commission, Rick Scott, the people who are formerly incarcerated, where he had this commission, they only meet 4 times a year, and they rarely grant anybody their voting rights back. I mean, that panel was an embarrassment and indicative of, again, of how some people strongly believe Republicans don't give a damn about people of color. Your final comment.
My final comment, Roland, is that, we can pay attention to the hysteria and the noise and what the media says, but it's policy, again, on a state and a local level.
Voter suppression is policy.
It's policy. For example, black people care about jobs and the economy. Black people care about their budget, their paycheck. Black people care about your freedom. You said it so eloquently. And that's why we pass free speech on college campuses with the help of a black Democrat lawmaker. So we're not just in a box of one issues, but there's a diversity of issues, a plethora of issues and causes
but
Demetrius, are
will you
about.
agree? But Demetrius, will you agree that as long as Republicans continue with voter suppression efforts, that is going to prevent black folks from even considering what they have to say on all the other things you just talked about? It's a barrier.
Roland, I'm a black conservative, and obviously I'm against voter suppression. However, look, I have to have an ID if I wanted to go see a rated R movie, if I wanted to check out a book from a library. I do
it's
believe
not
that
just ID, Demetrius. Demetrius,
there's
please.
a narrative.
It's not just an
Demetrius.
It's not just an ID, Demetrius. We know for a fact in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, how they made it very difficult to say not only is it an ID, and if you don't have one, you have to travel to an office, sign an affidavit to say you don't have an ID. Go back home, wait for them to certify that to come back and pick up your ID. If you are elderly, if you're young, you're not going to an office 2 or 3 times. We know also in North Carolina where they specifically cut out early voting locations to keep folks from voting in the early elections. The federal court said they were targeting black folks. So again, you can make the argument about it's about an ID. I'm in Texas, my home state, where you can vote with a gun license, but you can't vote with a student ID from a state university, which is a state-issued ID. That was done by purpose, and 600,000 people of color were disenfranchised 5 federal judges ruled against Texas. As a result, the Obama administration sided with the plaintiffs, the Trump administration sided with Texas, and the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, went along with Texas. But again, you keep saying it's just about an ID. If you're in Alabama and you're closing down driver's licenses offices, you can't get the same ID. You look at what's happening in Kansas, where Chris Kobach, there's one early voting location in a town, 13,000 people, largely Hispanic, 61%. They moved the polling location a mile out from the town with no bus stop? Come on, man. You can't tell me that wasn't done on purpose.
Roland, I came here to speak on behalf of the state of Florida, and I will tell you what's happened with early voting as far as poll locations.
I can talk about purging of votes in Florida, but go ahead.
Roland, I went to an early voting polling location that was a little bit further than where I would have to go if I decided to vote on Tuesday. However, I had no problem whatsoever. I had no issue whatsoever when I registered to vote in providing the documentation that was needed. So this narrative that Black people can't do whatever it takes to get an ID or to get identification, I think it's false. No, Demetrius, I think you and I would just have to disagree on that one.
Well, Demetrius, here's the deal, though. They ain't just Black people, because even in Wisconsin, where the Obama administration allowed their voter ID to go forward, a federal judge called in Governor Scott Walker and said, "Why are you dragging your feet on the issuing of voter IDs?" It impacted more than 200,000 people in the state of Wisconsin. And so, look, we keep saying, well, we should be able to get an ID. It's not just the issue of an ID. It's also what type of ID, and then, of course, the games they play. And last one, Demetrius, and again, here's the issue I have. When they say, oh, no, you can't get a birth certificate from the Bureau of Vital Stats. You got to get a birth certificate with the raised seal. Come on, man. We know that game. But, Demetrius, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. We'll have you back on. We'll see what happens in Florida, and we'll see how Ron DeSantis does with Black voters in Florida. Thanks a bunch.
Sure. Hey, thank you for having me.